there, Squirrel Army, how's it going? For today, I've got another of the commanders. This is Mirko, Obsessive Theorist from the Revenant Recon Commander deck.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alrighty, so like I've sort of said already in a few of these, I think that I'm not too super impressed with all of these. I think this one might be one of the better ones, but its last ability is kind of like the one that I'm like tripping on the most, I guess. But anyway, 3 mana, 1 blue and black, 1/3 flying and vigilance. So those things are pretty alright. I'm fine with this thing being a 1/3 flyer with vigilance. Vigilance seems like such a wide ability, but fine, whatever. Whenever you surveil, you put a counter on it, so it can grow quite big if you're really surveilling. And the last ability does deal with the graveyard, so you can bring things back at the beginning of your end step. You may return a creature card with power less than this, than Mirko's power, from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter, so if it dies, it gets exiled instead. Like, I'm always tripping on finality and thinking it's really, really bad because, and it might be better than what I think it is, but I just think, like, being able to return something, even to your hand, is, like, probably just better. I don't know. But then again, you get around the mana cost, so it cheats mana. But then again, like, I don't know, like, always the problem of having it get exiled unless you're going to flicker it or whatever else. I just don't like that because it's just like, at any time, once it dies, it's getting exiled anyway, so, it's a May trigger, so I guess okay, whatever, maybe that's okay, so I just 9 times out of 10 won't do it. So 9 times out of 10, this thing is just a flying thing that you gets counters on it and you surveil when you surveil. I don't know. I don't think that that's that amazing. Like, maybe again they'll print more surveilling stuff, and I think that there's some surveilling stuff in the set that I've kind of seen here and there. But there's not a whole lot of surveil stuff, especially that's really good thus far, and they really need to print a lot of really good surveil stuff with this to, get surveilling. Like, obviously there's Doom Whisperer and that, but that's kind of about it. Like, that's really, really good. And how do you win with this? Like, are you just, like, gonna be a Voltron build? Like, I don't know. Like, because that's always the problem with, like, these sorts of commanders. When you can grow your commander naturally, well, am I Voltron or am I not? Like, I never think that you should be. That's just me. That's the way that I look at it. Because if you're too reliant on your commander, like, being the win condition, it's just like, well, it's going to die 9 times out of 10 before you get to do the thing, because people know that your commander is your win condition. So they'll just sword your commander. So, but then again, the game is built around your commander, so, or most of the time, so, like, people sorting your commander or whatever is fairly commonplace, and that does shut down a lot of decks because, hey, well, now their commander's not out, and their deck's not really doing what it's meant to be doing, because the commander is usually what the deck's built around, but, like, some decks are a bit different than that, like, or whatever. Some decks just have the commander there as, like, this is a card and it exists. But it's not. This isn't bad. I'm just, like, going, well, I don't know. Like, obviously you can reanimate things, which is okay. But I'm just so, like, going, no, I don't want to reanimate them if they're just going to get exiled. Obviously, they're not always going to get exiled or whatever, but then you've got to build around another synergy to flicker them or whatever, so that when they do die, they don't get exiled, and whatever, and it's only at your end step. Yeah, sure, it's, like, once you play this, you can get something back, which is, alright, I guess, but still, And there's a few cards that are out there that are a bit weird with how much power and toughness that they have and whatnot, like Scourge of Throne or whatever it's called, that has power and toughness equal to whatever half your life or something, or whatever it is. I can't remember how it works or something, or it's got or like whatever it is, Shadow Verdict or whatever he's called, that gets neg 13 health or whatever, or neg amount of health equal to your life total or whatever. So you've got to have like basically only 6 or 7 health or whatever for him to have any power and toughness or whatever. And if you only have 1 health, he's basically full power or whatever it is. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how it works. But again, there's those cards that basically work on having, negative effective numbers and things like that, or numbers that basically mean 9 times out of 10 their power and toughness is, in the negatives. So you could run some of those sorts of things, or whatever, and whatnot. So yeah, you could get value that way. If they print a few cards that say when this card goes to exile from, the battlefield or something like that, you get something out of it, then maybe, yeah, sure. Or, even that's not enough, I don't think, because, like, you want them not just to do something like that, you want them to do something when you play them, or when they come in, or when they attack, or when they hit, or whatever. Like, so you could just be playing, like, all these little evasive dudes or whatever, or you could just be playing, like, big, stompy, things, like Demir's usually like playing a whole bunch of like smaller things, and since this is a 1/3 and it will only get bigger fairly slowly for the most part in my mind, unless they're really printing a lot of Surveil stuff, again, it's not going to get that big that quickly, and it's not going to stay big that quickly. Actually, something like what's it called? The counters thing, whatever it's called. I can't remember. My brain is not working right now, apparently. To store counters on it, and then you put the counters back on it. That's pretty good because, you just keep going with your game plan then, rather than losing all those counters. And since this is probably one of the few things that does care about having counters on it in your deck, that's probably more better than some other decks. Like, a lot of my decks don't do that, and it's not really that worth it to have that kind of stuff, because it's like, well, realistically, I'm not caring about one thing being buffed up and caring about it doing a whole lot of stuff that much for the most part, like 1 or 2 things and that sort of thing, but you're almost never going to get those 2 cards together for the most part again, so it's just like, well, that's not really that worth it, or it isn't that relevant. And yeah, sure, you could put it in there and it could do some stuff or whatever, but it's not really enough to really care about most of the time, so I just don't do it. But with this, you certainly do. You have one thing that you really care about, and in Voltron builds it certainly can be, or whatever. What's the Golgari? I can't remember its name now either. But again, that really because it keeps its counters, but also that will store counters, so you can just double its counters effectively, which is just super gross. But still, like I don't know. I think this one might be the best one so far out of the ones that I have seen, because like the limitations on it are pretty small. If this said, when this attacks or whatever or something, or when it hits a player, you may Surveil 1 or something, something like that, kept all its abilities keyed together, probably would be a bit better, I think, because at least then you're surveilling on it, so you don't really need to surveil too much around anything else. And then, yeah, sure, you might need stuff to recur things with, but still that's okay, I think, because this thing recurs things pretty badly anyway, so you might as well have gone the other route of it just surveilling itself and powering itself up. But then again, perhaps they thought that was too strong, or whatever, but they've just ended up making a really weak design in the end overall. So, and again, this again, I've said this before in a couple of, maybe a couple of the other ones, that this is 2024 Magic. This kind of card design just won't really get there anymore. If this said whenever you surveil, you may return one of those creatures to the battlefield and it has finality, then it would be way better. Because, or whatever, or whenever you deal combat damage with this thing, you may return a creature with power less than whatever this thing's power. But then again, I guess it's sort of very similar in that sense, or whatever. But, you know, I don't know. It gets your commander to actually attack, whereas, like, this commander might not ever even attack. For the most part, you might just sit it there and surveil and surveil and surveil and get it really big and then just forget that it exists because it, you know, it just returns stuff here and there or whatever. I don't know. It's tough to balance some of these things to make them not too busted, but make them good enough to actually, like, you know, work and actually be functional and cards that people will, like, I'm not to say that no one will build around this or it's terrible, but just like the power level of Magic, this is just way under the power level of Magic that people are kind of expecting in Commander when you're kind of playing it, you know. So again, I'm looking at, like I've said with a few of these, or saying this with a lot of these, or most of these, I'm just waiting to see the sub-commander, just hoping that that's better, because this is just not very good. This doesn't really offer enough power level to the format. Sure, if you're a Surveil deck and you want to put this in the 99, it's probably fine, because you can go, well, you know, or maybe a Blink deck of some sort, I don't know. I don't know, there's a very few places that you'd really care. Like, again, that's probably why I think it should just surveil itself. I don't know. Or at the beginning of your end step, you know, just surveil 1 or surveil 2 or something. I don't know. Like, that would probably just be better than returning something from the graveyard, because it returns things so poorly. And you've got to really keep your eye on those things, otherwise you just exile your stuff. Or, you know, you just end up having your stuff get exiled for freezies when somebody just casts, you know, Blasphemous Act or whatever. Because, again, you're probably just playing a whole bunch of, you know, small flyers for the most part, or whatnot, small evasive things. Because you're not going to, like, you can get this up there in power and toughness or whatever, but, like, it's going to be so slow, in my opinion, that you might as well just be playing those small little flyers and returning those from your graveyard every turn. Like, if you have things like Roaming Throne and things like that, to make this better, to do it twice at least, like, then at least that's pretty good. Like, again, in the surveilling counters thing happens twice, so that would be really good with it. But beyond that, there's no, like, ability Panharmonicon. Like, there are a couple of cards that you can copy abilities with, so sure, maybe you want those as well in a deck like this, but it's just so many hoops to sort of jump through that don't really provide you with a lot of value unless you're, like, playing things like Gary and things like that. And even then, there's, like, only 1 or 2 things that do that kind of thing. So I don't really see it, you know, being really that good. Maybe there's some crazy synergy or something that you can do that I'm not really thinking of, but, like, I don't know. There's always something that I don't think of, and someone says, "Oh, I didn't think of this." Write your thoughts down there and tell me what I've forgotten, so that I know. Because, yeah, like, sometimes it is one of those things that I go, "Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that until, you know, just after I finished filming this." So it is what it is, or whatever. But yeah, like, so you guys have really got to tell me what you guys think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments below. Am I wrong? Am I right? You know, what do you guys think about this? How would you put it together if you were to put it together? Or would you even put it together? Are you hyped for this, or are you just like, nah, this is pretty meh? You can let me know all those thoughts right down there in the comments. Hope you've enjoyed one way or the other, and I hope you'll join me again in the next one.